morning, world. The cheerful announcement echoed in the quiet digital space of a community Facebook group. On the cul-de-sac, the sun climbed higher, filtering through the maple leaves as the hum of distant lawnmowers began to replace the morning bird song. A few neighbors gathered by their mailboxes, a daily ritual of casual gossip. Well, look who it is. Sarah, I saw you sent out the save the dates. Mrs. Gable, a woman with a perfectly manicured lawn and an even more perfectly curated knowledge of neighborhood affairs, called out with a wide smile. Sarah, on her way to the local farmer's market, felt a blush creep up her neck. She gave a shy wave. We finally got them done, she admitted, clutching her reusable tote bag. It was true. After 4 years together, her fiancé, Michael, had finally proposed. They had navigated college, first jobs, and the struggles of saving up in a tough economy. Now, their big day was finally on the horizon, a beacon of promise for the serious, committed life they were ready to build. There had been one major hurdle: her mother, Diane. Diane was a woman who lived by horoscopes, planetary alignments, and the esoteric wisdom of a New Age spiritualist she'd trusted for decades. She had insisted they consult this woman to find a cosmically aligned date for the wedding, a day promising prosperity and happiness. To keep the peace, they had agreed. The chosen date was a Tuesday in October, a day supposedly blessed by favorable celestial conjunctions. It was inconvenient, but it made her mother happy. Sarah? Earth to Sarah? Mrs. Gable's voice snapped her out of her thoughts. Oh, sorry, Sarah laughed, pulling a few bills from her wallet to pay for a bundle of fresh kale and some garlic from a farm stand. My mind's been all over the place. Speaking of which, another neighbor chimed in. Have you found a wedding planner yet? I know a fantastic one, if you're looking for something unique. Sarah's eyes lit up. Oh, really? We haven't, actually. We've been so busy with the venue and the catering. Well, my niece used her. Her name is Ivy. She does these incredibly personal, custom ceremonies. Very spiritual. Here, I'll find her contact info for you, the woman offered. That would be amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah said, her heart soaring. Okay, I've got to run, but thank you. She walked home with a spring in her step, excited to tell Michael about the offer. An easy solution to one of their biggest planning headaches felt like a gift from the universe. Once inside, she dropped the groceries on the kitchen counter, ignoring them completely. She sank into the plush living room sofa, pulling out her phone. Hey, just got a wild offer from the neighborhood watch, lol, she texted Michael. Mrs. Gable's friend knows a wedding planner. His reply was almost instant. Oh yeah? Any good? She said she's unique, specializes in custom ceremonies. Maybe she's the one? We still haven't booked an officiant or anything. Sounds interesting. Did you get her number? I'll ask Mrs. Gable for it. Maybe we can check her out this weekend? Perfect. Let me know, he replied. The simple exchange filled Sarah with warmth. After so many years of dreaming, their wedding was finally taking shape. It was the culmination of their hard work and patience, the day Michael would officially make her his wife, promising a future filled with happiness. They were on the precipice of their perfect life, unaware of the path fate had already laid before them. That afternoon, Sarah got Ivy's number. A quick phone call confirmed she was available, and they arranged to meet at her home office a few days later. As she hung up, Sarah glanced at the kale on the counter, remembering she still had to make dinner. While chopping the vegetables, her mind drifted back to the wedding. She pictured the dress, the flowers, the first dance. Lost in her daydream, she didn't realize the knife had slipped until a sharp pain shot through her finger. Ouch, she yelped, a drop of blood welling up on her index finger. Her mother, Diane, rushed in from the other room. Sarah, what happened? She asked, her face etched with worry as she saw the blood. She quickly wrapped a paper towel around the cut. Honestly, you need to be more careful. You've been so distracted lately. I'm fine, Mom. It's just a small cut, Sarah said, wincing. This is the third time you've hurt yourself in a week, Diane pressed, her brow furrowed. You've been daydreaming constantly, and I've noticed you're barely touching your yoga mat anymore. Ever since you and Michael went to set that date, something's been off. Diane paused, her gaze turning serious. Sarah, can I ask you something? What is it, Mom? That wedding date. Are you sure that's the one the astrologer gave you? Sarah's hands stilled. The clatter of the knife against the cutting board was the only sound. She refused to meet her mother's eyes, focusing intently on dicing an onion. She didn't want to have this conversation. I'm asking you a serious question, Sarah. A wedding is a sacred commitment. It's not something to be trifled with. I'm asking because I have a bad feeling. What happens if you play games with a day like that? The chopping grew louder, more aggressive. With a final, forceful chop, Sarah slammed the knife down on the board. Furious, she rinsed her hands and stormed out of the kitchen, leaving her mother standing alone. Sarah, I'm not finished talking to you, Diane called after her, her voice trembling slightly. May my intuition be wrong, she whispered to the empty room, a knot of dread tightening in her stomach. Upstairs, Sarah fumed. She hated feeling controlled, hated the superstitions she felt were holding her back. In a fit of rebellion, she had done the unthinkable. A few weeks ago, she had convinced Michael to change the date. They kept the auspicious Tuesday for their parents, printed on a handful of invitations, but for everyone else, and for the venue, they had booked the following Saturday. It was their secret, a small act of defiance. Now, her mother's intuition was threatening to unravel it all. She vented her frustration in a long text to Michael, who was still at work. He called her back immediately. Hey, calm down, he said softly. What's going on? It's my mom. She's asking about the date again. She said she has a bad feeling. I can't stand it, Mike. After they hung up, Sarah took a few deep breaths and pulled up the directions to Ivy's house for their appointment that evening. Michael would pick her up straight from the office. Later, as they drove, the city lights gave way to winding country roads. Do you think it's really a big deal if we quietly changed the date? Sarah asked suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence. Michael glanced over at her, his focus momentarily shifting from the dark road. What's this about? Did your mom bring it up again? Sarah straightened up in her seat. She won't let it go. You know how hard she is to lie to, Mike. She asks about it every single day. It's driving me crazy. Michael chuckled, trying to lighten the mood. So just tell her we're sticking to the plan. Why get so worked up? When you act like this, it just makes her more suspicious. You're defending her? You're supposed to be on my side. Help me convince her it's fine. I'm not defending her, he sighed, his voice losing its playful edge. But you know how she is, and honestly, I'm not totally comfortable with this either. We were the only ones who went to that astrologer. No family was there. And now this? And now what? Are you blaming me? Sarah cut him off, her voice sharp. No, I have a bad feeling too, okay? He admitted, his own frustration surfacing. I feel like we're lying to everyone. A tense silence fell between them. Fine. Whatever. I don't want to fight about it, Michael finally said, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the unfamiliar, unlit road. Their car's headlights cut a lonely path through the darkness. Are you sure this is the right way? It feels like we're in the middle of nowhere. Sarah looked away from him, her anger turning to unease. She checked the map on her phone. The GPS says it is. Just keep going straight. They were deep in a forest now, the road turning to gravel. There were no houses, no streetlights, just an endless wall of dark trees. The sky had turned a deep, starless black. They felt utterly lost. Sarah, this can't be right, Michael said, his voice strained as he slowed the car. We're miles from anything. It says to just keep going, she insisted, though her own heart was starting to pound. She tried calling Ivy. No signal. A bead of sweat trickled down Michael's temple. Suddenly, there was a loud, sickening thump. The car jolted. Michael slammed on the brakes. What was that? Sarah shrieked. Did we hit something? Michael's face was pale in the dashboard light. He stared at Sarah, who was now huddled against the door, her face buried in her hands. Stay here, he said, his voice tight with fear. He forced himself to open the door and step out into the oppressive darkness. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves. Strange animal calls echoed from the deep woods. He clicked on his phone's flashlight, the thin beam cutting through the gloom. He swept it across the front of the car, then knelt to look underneath. Nothing. No animal, no broken branch, not even a scratch on the bumper. This is weird, he muttered. There's nothing here. He got back in the car. I couldn't find anything. Sarah looked up. her eyes wide with disbelief. What do you mean? We definitely hit something. I felt it. Well, there's nothing there now, he snapped, his patience worn thin. Look for yourself if you don't believe me. He threw the car back into drive, tires spinning on the loose gravel, and sped down the road, wanting only to get out of those woods. After another 30 minutes that felt like an eternity, they finally saw a faint glow through the trees, a single house. As they pulled into the long, overgrown driveway, a sense of dread washed over them. It was a massive, dilapidated Victorian home, choked with ivy and creeping vines. The paint was peeling, and most of the windows were dark. A single, bare bulb cast a sickly yellow light over the porch, illuminating a small, creepy-looking corn dolly with an offering of dried flowers at its feet. Sarah shivered, feeling as though unseen eyes were watching them from the darkened windows. The fear was a physical presence now, a cold weight in her chest. "Let's just go, Sarah," Michael whispered, his hand on the gear shift. "No, we drove all this way," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Come on." She got out of the car and walked towards the massive oak door, Michael reluctantly following. She knocked, and knocked again. The silence from within was absolute. It felt abandoned. "Ivy? It's Sarah and Michael," she called out, her voice sounding small in the vast quiet. Just as she was about to give up, the door creaked open with a startling suddenness. A tall, rail-thin woman with long, unkempt black hair and a severe, sharp-featured face stood before them. "Who are you looking for?" she asked, her voice a low, raspy whisper. They stared, momentarily stunned into silence. Sarah tried to peer past her into the house, but it was dark and cluttered. The woman shifted, blocking her view. "I said," she repeated, her voice colder this time. "Who are you looking for?" "Let's go, Sarah," Michael whispered urgently, grabbing her arm, but Sarah pulled away. "I'm Sarah," she said, forcing a bright smile. "We're looking for Ivy. Is this her house?" "Ivy is inside. I'll get her." "Come in," the woman said, stepping back into the shadows. Sarah took a step forward, but Michael held her back. "Are you sure about this? Look at this place." The interior was even worse than the outside. The air was thick with dust, and cobwebs draped every corner. Furniture was thrown about in disarray. It was a scene of utter neglect. "We came all this way, Mike. Let's just see what she has to say," Sarah insisted, her stubbornness overriding her fear. She walked in and sat on a dusty sofa, trying to appear casual. Michael stood stiffly by the door, his eyes darting around nervously. "How can you be so calm in a place like this?" he hissed. Before she could answer, a different woman emerged from a dark hallway. Sarah's jaw dropped. Where the first woman was harsh and skeletal, this one was ethereally beautiful. She moved with a silent grace, her smile warm and inviting. "You must be Sarah," she said, her voice like soft music. "I'm Ivy. It's so lovely to meet you." Sarah immediately stood, shaking her hand. "Yes, I'm Sarah, and this is my fiancé, Michael." Sarah's eyes sparkled. This woman was a beacon of light in the gloomy house, and her presence instantly dispelled the fear and suspicion she had felt. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah said. Glancing towards the hallway where the first woman had disappeared, Ivy laughed softly. "That's my sister Hazel. Please, forgive her. She's not very fond of visitors." Just then, Hazel reappeared, silently placing 2 cups of tea on a rickety table before melting back into the darkness. Michael finally spoke, his voice strained. "We had a strange experience on the way here. Our car felt like it hit something, but when I checked, there was nothing there. Is that normal around here?" Ivy leaned back, a knowing smile playing on her lips. "Oh, the woods are mischievous. They like to play tricks on newcomers. Don't worry about it. Now, you're interested in my services for your wedding?" "Yes," Sarah said eagerly. "We're planning on having a ceremony with some traditional elements." Ivy pulled out a notepad. "Excellent. If you use my full package, the price is quite reasonable." She scribbled down some figures and showed them the paper. They both raised their eyebrows. Is this correct?" Michael asked, shocked. The price was unbelievably low, far below market rate. "I offer a discount for local couples," Ivy explained smoothly. "It makes my services more accessible. Now, you said the date was for next month, the 14th, correct?" "That's right," Michael confirmed. Ivy paused. looking at a large calendar on the wall. The 14th, but that's a Saturday. Are you sure? That day has some very challenging astrological aspects. The question hung in the air, cold and heavy. The same question her mother kept asking. We consulted an expert, Sarah snapped, her defensiveness flaring up. She slammed her hand on the table, rattling the teacups. The sudden noise startled everyone. Hazel reappeared in the doorway, her eyes blazing with fury. She pointed a long, bony finger at Sarah. You should not be here, Hazel hissed, her voice venomous. You brought something with you, a darkness. Your deceit stinks up my home. What are you talking about? Sarah shot back, jumping to her feet. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. You play games with things you don't understand. The two women faced off, their anger filling the small room. Michael grabbed Sarah, trying to pull her back. Sarah, stop! We're guests in her home. Hazel, that's enough, Ivy said calmly, but with an edge of command. Go back inside. Miraculously, Hazel fell silent. She shot one last venomous glare at Sarah, a cruel, knowing smirk twisting her lips as she retreated. The smirk chilled Sarah to the bone. Please, sit down, Ivy said, her composure completely restored. I don't wish to interfere. Are you interested in my services, or not? Sarah was still trembling, the image of Hazel's face burned into her mind. Michael answered for her. Yes, we're interested, he said quickly, desperate to finalize the deal and leave. Excellent, Ivy said, extending a hand to seal the agreement. I'll be in touch. As Ivy walked them to the door, a cold night wind swept across the porch. Sarah shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. You're cold, Ivy observed, her smile unwavering. She stepped closer, putting a familiar arm around Sarah's shoulders. Sarah flinched at her touch. Wait here, I'll get you a sweater. No, that's okay. We have to go, Michael said, practically pulling Sarah toward the car. It's getting late. From the porch, Ivy watched them, her unnerving smile fixed in place as their car disappeared down the dark, wooded road. Back in the car, the silence was heavy with unspoken fear. I can't believe you still wanted to go through with that, Michael finally said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. How was I supposed to know it would be that creepy? Sarah retorted. But the price is right, and our wedding is just weeks away. We don't have time to find someone else. The drive home was a blur of mutual blame and simmering regret. Michael couldn't shake the feeling that he had made a terrible mistake by agreeing to any of this, changing the date, lying to their families, and now hiring this strange, unsettling woman. As the wedding day approached, Michael's anxiety spiraled. He was sick, exhausted, and plagued by nightmares in which he would call out Ivy's name. His work suffered, and his family grew increasingly concerned about his erratic behavior. They blamed Sarah, sensing that she was the source of his distress. The day before the rescheduled Saturday wedding, on the original Tuesday chosen by the astrologer, Michael broke. Pale and trembling in his bed, he confessed everything to his parents. Mom, Dad, I have to tell you something, he whispered, his voice hoarse. Sarah and I, we changed the wedding date. It was supposed to be today. We moved it to Saturday. The horrified silence that followed was broken by his father's stern command. That night, Michael's family called Sarah's, demanding that the wedding take place immediately that very night, on the correct date to avert whatever disaster they felt was looming. Sarah's mother, Diane, was vindicated but devastated. You foolish, foolish girl, she screamed at Sarah, her hand striking Sarah's cheek with a sharp crack. Why? What reason could you possibly have for doing something so reckless? I don't have a reason, Sarah sobbed. A decision this big and you have no reason? Diane raged. You are a fool! Fine, Sarah finally shrieked, tears streaming down her face. You want a reason? I was sick of it. Sick of your superstitions and your rules and living my life by your fears. I wanted to prove to you that none of it matters. That changing a date means nothing. Without another word, she ran to her room to get ready, slamming the door on her mother's heartbroken face. Later that evening, Ivy arrived to do Sarah's makeup. As she worked, she spoke softly. I tried to warn you, Sarah. It's not your fault, Sarah mumbled, trying to hold back fresh tears. I'm the one who made this mess. I'll deal with the consequences. But to get married like this? So suddenly, in the middle of the night? Ivy mused, applying a deep red lipstick to Sarah's lips. Doesn't that feel wrong? It's what his family wants, Sarah said, her voice full of despair. Michael's so sick. They're forcing him to do this. He's sick, and they're making him get married? Ivy protested, pausing her work. That's strange. As Ivy put the finishing touches on Sarah's hair, weaving fragrant jasmine flowers into an elegant updo, they heard the sound of cars pulling up outside, followed by the chatter of guests. The groom's party had arrived. Ivy went to the door to greet them. A moment later, she returned, her face ashen. Her hands were trembling. Ivy? What is it? Sarah asked, seeing her reflection in the mirror. She looked like a perfect bride, but her heart was a stone in her chest. They're here, Ivy stammered. The procession began. Michael walked down the aisle, flanked by his parents. He looked gaunt, his eyes vacant and hollow. He stared straight ahead, not at Sarah, but through her, as if she wasn't there. His gaze was fixed on Ivy, who stood frozen by the doorway. Sarah's blood ran cold. Why is he looking at her like that? The ceremony was a surreal nightmare. Michael didn't speak a word. He didn't smile. He didn't even look at her as they exchanged rings. The reception was even stranger. A lavish buffet was laid out, but not a single person from the groom's side moved to eat. They sat at their tables in complete silence, their faces blank, their posture unnaturally still. Sarah, now sitting beside her new husband, felt a profound and terrifying distance from him. "Mike," she whispered, touching his arm. He didn't respond. He didn't even flinch. His skin was ice cold. Panicked, she looked across the room and saw Ivy watching her, her eyes wide with terror. Ivy subtly gestured for her to come over. "I'll be right back," Sarah said to Michael's unmoving form. His hand felt like it belonged to a corpse. She hurried over to Ivy, her wedding dress swishing around her ankles. "What is going on?" Sarah pleaded in a frantic whisper. "Why are they all acting so strange?" Ivy's hand shook as she held up her phone. On the screen was a breaking news alert. Sarah's eyes scanned the headline: "Tour bus carrying wedding party in fatal crash. No survivors reported." Her vision tunneled. The article detailed a horrific accident that had occurred hours earlier on a remote highway, the very highway Michael's family would have taken to get to the wedding. She slowly turned her head, looking back at the silent, unmoving guests, at her parents-in-law, sitting with placid, empty smiles, at Michael, her husband, staring into nothingness. They were not human. They were ghosts. A strangled cry escaped her lips. The world tilted, the faces of the dead swimming before her eyes. Then, everything went black as she collapsed to the floor. The sound of her body hitting the ground broke the spell. Panic erupted. Sarah's family and friends, suddenly realizing the horrifying truth of who or what they were sharing a room with, began screaming and scrambling for the exits, fleeing into the night. The wedding, born of defiance and sealed by tragedy, became a ghost story whispered in the community for years to come. A chilling reminder that some traditions, some warnings, are not meant to be broken. The wedding, born of defiance and sealed by tragedy, became a ghost story whispered in the community for years to come. A chilling reminder that some traditions, some warnings, are not meant to be broken. The profound, unshakable regret became Sarah's new reality. The weight of her choices, her lies, and her pride crushed her spirit. She was left alone with the haunting memory of her husband's cold touch and the vacant eyes of a family she had only met in death. Her mother's warnings, once a source of bitter resentment, now echoed in her mind as a prophecy she had foolishly ignored. The happiness she had so desperately chased, bending fate to her own will, had dissolved into an endless night of sorrow. What do you all think of this story? Feel free to share your thoughts. The story ends here. Thank you to everyone who followed this tale to its conclusion. May you all be blessed with health, a long life, happiness, and success always. And thank you to those who have engaged with this story. May you be granted safety and well-being. For those who are just discovering this channel, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss our latest tales. I apologize for any errors in my telling. I now take my leave. Peace be with you.